All right, let's dive in. Imagine you're a detective, but your case is billions of years old. The mystery? The story of life on Earth. And the crime scene is, well, the entire planet. So, where on Earth do you even start looking for clues?
I mean, it's not like you can interview a T-Rex or check the security footage from the Jurassic period, right? This case has been cold for, well, eons. So how do scientists crack it? They look for the clues that have survived. Clues that are hidden deep in stone, written into our very DNA, and even built right into the blueprint of our own bodies.
Okay, so our first stop on this investigation takes us deep into the Earth's crust. We're talking about fossils. Think of them as echoes of ancient life, literally left behind in stone.
So what is a fossil really? It's easy to just think dinosaur bones, but it's so much more than that. Yeah, it can be the actual remains, like a skeleton, but it can also be just a trace an animal left behind, like a footprint, perfectly preserved for millions and millions of years.
So how does this even happen? Well, picture this. An animal dies and gets buried super quickly by mud or sand. Then, over just an immense amount of time, all that sediment gets squeezed and hardened into rock. The remains inside, they get mineralized, basically turning to stone, creating this perfect, rocky snapshot of a moment in ancient life.
Okay, but here's where it gets really cool. Scientists, geologists, they figured out that these rock layers, they're called strata, they're not just a jumbled mess. They're like pages in a history book. The deeper you dig, the further back in time you go.
And what they find in those deepest, oldest layers, that's the first huge piece of our puzzle. The life they find down there is, well, simpler. And as you come up through the layers, closer to the surface, into younger and younger rock, the fossils get more and more complex. It's an actual timeline written right there in the stone.
So, the big takeaway here is that fossils aren't just random bones scattered around. No way. They're ordered clues. They give us a schedule, a calendar of life's history. They show us what lived, when it lived, and you can literally see how it changed, bit by bit, into the life we see all around us today.
All right, that's clue number 1. For our second clue, we're going to leave the ancient rocks behind and zoom in, way in, to the biological code that connects almost every living thing on this planet. We're talking about DNA.
You can think of DNA as the ultimate instruction manual. It's the code, the software that runs the hardware of life. And what's amazing is that it's in everything, from the tiniest bacterium to a massive blue whale, and, of course, in you.
And here's the key to this clue. By comparing the specific code, all those A's, T's, C's, and G's, in different species, scientists can see just how closely related they are. It's basically a genetic family tree. The more similar the code, the closer they are on that tree, the more recently they shared a common ancestor.
Let me give you an example. Our DNA and the DNA of a chimpanzee, it's incredibly similar. That points to us sharing an ancestor in our not-so-distant past. And it's the same deal with dogs and wolves. Their genetic codes are so alike, it's just undeniable they're super close relatives.
So when you look at all of the genetic evidence, it's overwhelming. It paints this incredible picture of a massive, interconnected family tree. It shows that so many species that we think of as totally different are actually part of the same family, with a shared history written right there in their DNA.
Okay, on to our third and final clue. This one is all about anatomy, the way living things are built. And it turns out a lot of animals are put together using a surprisingly similar blueprint.
This is where we get into something called homologous structures. I know it's a bit of a sciencey term, but all it means is body parts in different animals that have the same basic design, even if they're used for totally different jobs. The best way to get it is to just look at an example.
Let's start with the human arm. You've got one bone up top, 2 bones in your forearm, and then all those little bones in your wrist and hand. We use it for, well, everything, right? Grasping, throwing, typing.
Now imagine a whale's flipper right next to it. A whale uses its flipper for swimming, a completely different job. But if you could look inside, you'd see the exact same pattern. 1 bone, 2 bones, and then a set of smaller bones making up the flipper. It's the same basic structure. And let's throw one more in the mix. A bat's wing. Its job is flying. But again, look at the bones. You see it, right? 1 bone, 2 bones, and then a set of really long, thin finger bones. It's the same toolkit, just adapted for a totally different purpose.
So you have all these different jobs, but they're all using the same basic blueprint.
What does that tell you? It's a huge clue that these animals didn't just invent this design on their own. It suggests they all inherited it from a common ancestor, and then it was modified over time for their specific needs.
But wait, the anatomy clue has another part to it. We also have what are called vestigial structures. Now, these are fascinating. They're basically evolutionary leftovers, parts that an organism's ancestors clearly used, but are now just kind of hanging around with no real job to do.
I mean, think about your own tailbone. You don't have a tail, obviously, but you have the bones for one. Or even weirder, some whales have tiny little hip bones just floating around inside their bodies. Why? They're leftovers from when their ancestors actually walked on land. These things make absolutely zero sense on their own, but they make perfect sense when you see them as echoes of a very, very different past.
Okay, we've looked at the clues from the rocks, the clues in our genes, and the clues in anatomy. So it's time for the verdict. Let's put all these pieces together and see what story they tell.
So first, the fossil record gave us the timeline, showing that life has changed, step by step, over huge amounts of time. Then, DNA came in like a massive paternity test for all of life, revealing all these hidden family connections. And finally, anatomy showed us the physical proof of that family resemblance, those shared blueprints.
See, no single one of these clues tells the whole story on its own. But when you put them all together, they fit like pieces of a puzzle. They interlock perfectly. The fossils, the genetics, the anatomy, they all point to the exact same conclusion, that life on this planet is one single, gigantic, interconnected story of change over time.
And you know what? This story is definitely not over. Not by a long shot. Every single new fossil we dig up, every new genome that gets sequenced, it adds another page to this incredible book. It really makes you wonder, right? What crucial piece of this ancient mystery are we going to find next?